The Black Widow nursed his baby, and now a Comanche warrior stood in her doorway calling her mother. The flames behind him painted the Texas sky orange. Smoke drifted between them like 20 years of buried secrets. Ayanna towered in the threshold, war paint streaking his weathered face. His massive frame blocked the starlight. A small girl clutched his calloused hand, her mixed heritage written in the curve of her cheekbones and the darkness of her eyes. Mother. The word cracked like dry timber. I've come to take you to safety. Sierra's fingers found the faded baby blanket draped over her rocking chair. The same blanket that had swaddled him when fever nearly claimed his infant body. Her weathered hands trembled against the worn cotton. Samuel. His given name felt foreign. On her tongue, "What have you done?" The distant rumble of hoofbeats echoed across the plains. War cries pierced the night air. The settlement of Millbrook burned 2 miles away, and her son had lit the match. After tonight, I can never call you that again. Ayanna's voice carried the weight of mountains. Mother. The little girl stepped forward. Her dark eyes held questions too heavy for her 6 years. Sierra's heart lurched. The child's face mirrored another face from long ago. A dying woman's face, painted with blood and desperation. Who is she? Sierra whispered. Luna. Ayanna's jaw tightened. Maria's daughter. The name struck Sierra like lightning. Maria, Abigail Harrington's granddaughter, the child taken in raids 5 years past. The circle had closed in ways she never imagined. You're making me choose. Sierra's voice barely carried over the wind. Between you and everything I've built here. You raised me to be 2 people. Ayanna stepped closer. The firelight danced across his painted features. I can't be both anymore. Sierra studied the man before her. Gone was the boy who'd helped her gather herbs in the meadow. Gone was the child who'd curled against her during thunderstorms. This was a war chief. This was vengeance given form. I raised you better than this. You raised me to survive. His hand moved to the war axe at his belt. Survival means choosing a side. The sounds of battle grew closer. Millbrook's church bell rang frantically in the distance. Soon the war party would sweep across the plains toward her cabin. Soon there would be no more time for words. Luna tugged at Ayanna's buckskin shirt. Her small voice cut through the tension like a blade. Papa, why is the sky on fire? Ayanna knelt beside the child. His painted face softened for a moment. The warrior mask slipped, revealing something broken. Underneath, something that still remembered being held by gentle hands. Because sometimes the old world has to burn for the new one to grow. He touched Luna's cheek. Like prairie grass after lightning, Sierra watched the exchange. The child's innocence stood in stark contrast to the violence surrounding them. This little girl would inherit whatever choice they made tonight. The weight of that responsibility settled on Sierra's shoulders like winter snow. She's why you chose, isn't she? Sierra stepped onto the porch. Not revenge, not honor, her. Ayanna rose slowly. His eyes met hers across the space between them. In that gaze, she saw the truth. He'd chosen war not from hatred, but from love. Love for a daughter who would never be safe in a world divided. They killed her mother. His voice dropped to a whisper. Maria died bringing Luna into this world. A world that has no place for children like her. The wind carried the scent of smoke and gunpowder. Sierra's cabin stood like an island between 2 storms. Behind Ayanna, the Comanche war party approached. Behind her, the remnants of Millbrook's defenders would soon arrive seeking shelter. So you'll burn it all down. Sierra's statement carried no judgment, only understanding. I'll build something better from the ashes. Ayanna's hand found Luna's. Again, a world where she belongs. Sierra looked at the child once more. Luna's face held such trust. Such hope. The same expression Samuel had worn as a boy when fever dreams made him call out in languages he'd never learned. Come with us. Ayana extended his free hand. I can protect you. Both of you. The offer hung between them like morning mist. Sira could leave. She could abandon the settlement that had barely tolerated her. She could flee with the son she'd raised and the granddaughter she'd never known. But fleeing meant becoming part of the destruction. It meant watching everything she'd built crumble into dust. I won't run. Sira's voice carried across the plains. Not from you, not from them. Ayana's extended hand dropped to his side. Disappointment flickered across his painted features. The boy she'd raised was still there, buried beneath layers of war paint and righteous anger. Then I can't protect you from what's coming. The hoofbeats grew thunderous. The war party crested the hill behind Ayana like a wave of shadow and steel. Sira counted at least 30 warriors, their faces painted for battle, their weapons gleaming in the firelight. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. Sira's words carried the weight of 2 decades. About your mother, about the pendant, about what you were meant to become. Ayana's eyes narrowed. What truth? The war party slowed as they approached. Their leader, a scarred warrior with eagle feathers in his hair, raised his hand. The riders formed a semicircle around Sarah's cabin. Their horses stamped and snorted, eager for battle. The truth about why she died. Sarah's voice cut through the night. Your birth mother. What she whispered to me before the fever took her. Luna pressed closer to Ayana's leg. The child sensed the tension coiling around them like a rattlesnake preparing to strike. Her small fingers gripped his buckskin shirt. She said you were meant to be a bridge. Sira stepped off the porch. Not a torch. The words hit Ayana like physical blows. His painted face twisted with emotion, anger, confusion, something that might have been hope. Bridges get burned first in war. His voice carried the bitterness of hard-learned lessons. I learned that when your people used me as bait. The scarred warrior urged his horse forward. His presence demanded attention, demanded answers. The war party had come for blood, and their chief was growing impatient. Ayana, the warrior's voice rumbled like distant thunder. The settlement burns. It's time. Sarah looked at her son. At the child beside him. At the warriors surrounding her home. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. One word could tip it. Toward mercy or massacre. Then hear the rest of the truth first. Sira's voice rose above the wind. Before you choose war, know what your choice really means. The truth began 20 years before the flames. Before the war paint. Before the child with mixed blood standing in the doorway of violence. Sira closed her eyes. The present dissolved into memory like morning frost. 20-year-old Sira knelt beside her husband's grave. The Texas earth had swallowed him whole, leaving her with calloused hands in a cabin that echoed with emptiness. Freedom papers tucked in her Bible meant nothing when freedom came with hunger. The settlement of Millbrook tolerated her presence. Barely. She delivered babies when white midwives refused the risk. She stitched wounds when proper doctors turned away. Her skin marked her as lesser, but her skills kept her alive. Sheriff. Dutch Morgan found her hanging laundry behind the cabin. His boots crushed the wildflowers she'd planted over her husband's grave. The disrespect was intentional. Got a situation outside town. Morgan's voice carried the weight of authority and contempt. Need someone to handle it. Sira's wet hand stilled on the cotton shirt. Situations meant death. Usually violent death that required cleaning before burial. What kind of situation? The kind that don't concern decent folk. Morgan spat tobacco juice near her feet. You'll come or you'll find somewhere else to practice your doctoring. The threat hung between them like smoke. Sira had no choice. She never had choices. The ride to the canyon took an hour. Morgan's silence spoke volumes. Whatever waited ahead would test more than her medical skills. It would test her humanity. The aftermath of cavalry raids painted the earth in shades of sorrow. Sierra had seen such scenes before. The army swept through Comanche camps like wildfire, leaving ash and broken dreams in their wake. But the soldiers were gone now. Only the consequences remained. A dying woman lay propped against a boulder. Her buckskin dress bore dark stains that told stories of violence. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. Her eyes held the desperate love of a mother facing eternity. The baby in her arms whimpered, tiny fists pushed against the cooling air. The child's cries echoed off canyon walls like prayers in an empty church. Sierra approached slowly. The woman's gaze tracked her movement. Intelligence flickered behind the pain. Recognition of shared motherhood transcended the barriers of language and culture. "Please," the word came in broken English, "my son." The woman's hands trembled as she lifted the baby. Her strength was failing like water through cupped palms. Time measured itself in heartbeats and labored breaths. Sierra knelt beside the dying mother. The woman's eyes held stories of wind and wide skies, of buffalo hunts and star-filled nights, of a world disappearing faster than morning dew. "He is bridge." The woman's voice barely carried over the wind. "Between worlds. You understand." A pendant pressed into Sierra's palm. Turquoise caught the afternoon light like captured sky. The stone was warm from the woman's skin, sacred, meaningful beyond words. "Promise me." The mother's grip tightened with surprising strength. "Raise him to know both worlds." The baby's cries grew stronger. Life, demanding attention while death waited patiently. Sierra felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. "I promise." The woman's eyes closed. Her breathing stopped. The wind carried her spirit across the plains toward whatever waited beyond. The horizon of flesh and bone. Morgan's voice cut through the sacred moment like a blade through silk. "Leave it." Sierra looked up. The sheriff stood 10 feet away, his hand resting on his gun belt. His face showed no emotion, no recognition of the tragedy that had just unfolded. "That's a Comanche child." Morgan's words carried the finality of judgment. "Nothing good comes from their kind." The baby's cries intensified. Hunger and cold were universal languages. The child needed warmth, needed milk, needed someone to care whether he lived or died. "He's innocent," Sarah's voice carried across the canyon. "Just a baby." "He's a future warrior." Morgan stepped closer. "Every one of them grows up to raid and kill. Better to end it now." The choice crystallized in the afternoon heat. Obey authority and let innocence die, or risk everything for a child who would never be safe in the world that had killed his mother. Sierra gathered the baby against her chest. His tiny body fit perfectly in the curve of her arm. His cries softened at the contact. Some part of him recognized the promise of protection. "I'm taking him home." Morgan's hand moved to his gun. "That's not your decision to make. It's not yours either." Sierra stood slowly. The baby's weight felt substantial, real, like hope given form. "This child needs care. I'll provide it." The standoff stretched between them, Morgan's authority against Sarah's defiance. The baby's soft breathing filled the silence. Life insisting on its right to continue. "You're harboring the enemy." Morgan's voice carried the promise of consequences. "That comes with a price." "Everything comes with a price." Sierra adjusted the baby's position. "This one I can live with." The ride back to Millbrook passed in tense silence. The baby slept against Sierra's chest, his tiny fist wrapped around her finger. Such trust from someone so small. Such faith in a world that had already betrayed him. Her cabin felt different with the baby inside, warmer somehow. Purpose filled the empty spaces where grief had lived. She heated milk from her neighbor's cow, mixed it with water until it was thin enough for tiny lips to accept. The baby drank greedily. His dark eyes never left her face. Already learning who meant safety, who meant survival. Night fell like a curtain across the plains. Sira lit a lamp and studied the child more carefully. His features held the strong bones of his people, high cheekbones, straight black hair, skin that would darken with age and sun. The townspeople would know, eventually, features like his couldn't be hidden forever. The pendant caught the lamplight. Turquoise held ancient wisdom in its depths. The baby's mother had worn it close to her heart, had passed it on with her dying breath. Sira tucked the pendant into her Bible, hidden between psalms and promises. Some secrets were too dangerous for daylight. The baby's eyes drifted closed. His breathing settled into the rhythm of dreams. Sira rocked him gently, her voice humming lullabies her own mother had sung. Songs of comfort, songs of belonging. Morning brought visitors. Abigail Harrington stood on the porch with 2 other women from town. Their faces carried the sharp edges of judgment and curiosity. "Heard you took in a child." Abigail's voice held no warmth. "Whose is it?" Sira had prepared for this moment, had rehearsed the lie until it felt smooth as river stone. "Family from the next county," the words came easily. "Both parents died of fever. Asked me to take the boy before they passed." Abigail's eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, studying the baby's features. Her son had died in Comanche raids 3. Years passed. Hatred had carved permanent lines around her mouth. "Looks different." Abigail's observation carried threat. "Not like our kind. Fever changes babies." Sira's voice remained steady. "Makes them look sickly. He'll grow into himself." The other women murmured agreement. They'd seen children marked by illness, had watched fever steal color and strength from the young. But Abigail's stare lingered. Her suspicion coiled like a snake preparing to strike. "What's his name?" "Samuel." The name came without thought. Strong, biblical, safe. Samuel. Abigail tested the word. Better teach him to fit in. This town don't tolerate outsiders. The warning was clear. Conform, or face consequences. Sira nodded acceptance while her heart burned with defiance. Father Miguel arrived after the women left. The Mexican priest had kind eyes and gentle hands. His presence brought peace to the small cabin. "Show me the child." Sira unwrapped Samuel from his blanket. The priest's weathered face studied the baby's features. Recognition flickered in his dark eyes. "I know what he is." Miguel's voice carried no judgment. "And I know what you risk by keeping him. Will you help us?" The priest's calloused hands touched Samuel's forehead. A blessing in Spanish whispered over the sleeping child. Words of protection and hope. God loves all his children. Miguel's eyes met Sira's. Even the ones the world rejects. The alliance formed without words. 2 outsiders protecting an innocent. 2 people who understood what it meant to be different in a world that demanded conformity. Samuel stirred in his sleep. His tiny fist opened and closed around empty air, reaching for something beyond the physical world, perhaps touching the dreams of his lost mother. Sira settled him against her shoulder. His breathing warmed her neck. Such a small thing to carry such weight. Such a fragile life to bear such significance. The pendant pressed against her heart through the layers of cloth. A reminder of promises made to the dying, of bridges meant to span the distance between worlds. Outside, the Texas wind carried the scent of sage and distant rain. Change was coming. Sira could feel it in the shifting air, in the way shadows fell across her threshold. She would raise this child to know both worlds, would honor his mother's dying wish while keeping him safe from those who would destroy him. The path ahead stretched like an unmarked trail, dangerous, uncertain, but necessary. Samuel's eyes opened. Dark pools reflecting lamplight and possibility. He looked at her with complete trust, complete faith in her ability to protect him. "I'll keep you safe." Her whispered promise joined the wind outside. "Whatever it takes." 11 years carved Samuel into someone new. The baby's soft features had sharpened into angles that spoke of windswept plains and ancient bloodlines. His skin had darkened under the Texas sun. His eyes held depths that seemed to see beyond the horizon. Sarah watched him track deer through the meadow behind their cabin. His movements flowed like water over stone, silent, instinctive, natural in ways that couldn't be taught. The other boys from town stumbled through the underbrush. Their boots cracked every twig, their voices scattered wildlife for miles. But Samuel moved through the world like he belonged to it. "How does he do that?" Tommy Watson whispered too loudly. Samuel's head turned. His hearing caught sounds that escaped others. His eyes found details they missed. The gift and curse of blood that remembered when survival meant becoming one with the land. Practice. Samuel's voice carried no pride. Only fact, but Sarah knew. Better. This wasn't learned skill. This was inheritance. The same inheritance that made townspeople study his face when they thought he wasn't looking. The lie was wearing thin. 11 years of careful words and hidden truths. 11 years of watching Samuel grow into features that couldn't be explained. Away by fever or distant relatives, Abigail Harrington's suspicion had hardened into something sharp. Her questions came more frequently now. Her stares lingered longer. Her hatred for the Comanche had never dimmed, and Samuel's presence fed flames she couldn't quite name. "That boy ain't right," Abigail's voice carried across the church steps. "Mark my words, there's wildness in him." The other women nodded. They'd seen Samuel's abilities, watched him track wounded animals through terrain that baffled grown men, witnessed him sense storms hours before clouds appeared. Fear dressed itself as righteousness. Suspicion wore the mask of concern. The town's tolerance was measured in degrees, and Samuel was approaching the limit. Evening brought him home with rabbit for their supper. He cleaned the animal with practiced efficiency. His knife moved with precision that spoke of hands that knew their work. "Where did you learn that?" Sarah asked. Samuel's hands stilled. The question hung between them like smoke from a dying fire. He looked at her with eyes that seemed older than his years. "I don't know." His voice carried confusion. "I just knew." Dreams had been troubling his sleep. Visions of painted faces and thundering hooves. Voices speaking in languages he shouldn't understand, but somehow did. His heritage called to him. Across the years like wind through canyon walls. Sarah found him that night, studying his reflection in the water basin. His fingers traced the shape of his cheekbones, the line of his jaw, features that grew more pronounced with each passing season. "Am I different?" The question came without warning. Sarah's heart clenched. The moment she'd dreaded for 11 years had arrived. Truth demanded its reckoning. Different how? From you, from them. Samuel's reflection wavered in the water. From everyone. The pendant pressed against Sarah's chest beneath her dress. His mother's final gift. The weight of promises made to the dying. The burden of secrets that grew heavier with time. "We're all different." Sarah's words felt insufficient. "That's what makes us human." But Samuel's eyes held knowledge that went deeper than childhood curiosity. Something stirred in his blood. Something that recognized its own kind calling across the darkness. "I dream of horses." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Wild horses running across endless grass, and I'm riding with them." Sarah's breath caught. The dreams were starting. The awakening that she'd both hoped for and feared. His mother's dying wish that he know both worlds was beginning to manifest. Dreams are just dreams. These feel like memories. Samuel's reflection stared back at him. Memories of a life I never lived. The next morning brought visitors. Father Miguel arrived with news written across his weathered face. His horse was lathered with sweat. His eyes held urgency. "There's been talk." Miguel's voice carried warning. "About the boy, about his origins. Sierra's blood turned to ice. The reckoning she'd avoided for 11 years was approaching like a storm front across the plains. What kind of talk? The kind that ends with rope and torches. Miguel's honesty cut deep. They're asking questions, hard questions. Samuel appeared in the doorway. His presence filled the space with quiet intensity. His eyes moved between the adults, reading tension in their postures. Questions about what? The silence stretched between them. Truth and lies balanced on a knife's edge. Sierra felt the weight of 11 years pressing down on her shoulders. About who you really are. Miguel's words carried the finality of Judgment Day. Samuel's face showed no surprise, only confirmation of what he'd already suspected. The dreams had prepared him. The visions had whispered secrets his conscious mind hadn't wanted to accept. I'm Comanche. The words came without hesitation. Aren't I? Sierra's carefully constructed world cracked like drought-stricken earth. The lie that had protected them for 11 years crumbled into dust. Yes, the admission escaped her lips like a prayer. You are. Samuel's shoulders straightened. Something shifted in his posture. Recognition of truth after years of confusion. The boy who'd struggled to fit in suddenly understood why he'd always felt like an outsider. My real parents? Dead. Sarah's voice carried the weight of that long ago. Day, your mother died in my arms. She asked me to raise you. To help you know both worlds. The pendant emerged from beneath Sarah's dress. Turquoise caught the morning light like captured sky. Sacred stone that had traveled from dying hands to living heart. This was hers. Sierra placed the pendant in Samuel's palm. She wore it close to her heart, wanted you to have it. Samuel's fingers closed around the stone. His eyes drifted shut. Something passed across his face. Recognition. Connection. The awakening of blood that remembered its source. I can feel her. His voice carried wonder. In the stone. In my dreams, Miguel crossed himself. The old priest had seen many things in his long life. But this felt different, sacred, the meeting of two worlds in the heart of one child. What do I do now? Samuel's question held the weight of destiny. You choose. Sierra's words came from the deepest part of her heart. You can stay and pretend to be what they want you to be, or you can become who you really are. The choice hung between them like morning mist. Samuel's future balanced on the edge of decision. Stay safe in the lie or embrace the dangerous truth of his heritage. Can I be both? The question pierced Sierra's heart. His mother's dying wish echoed across the years. A bridge between worlds. A child who belonged to both and neither, I don't know. Sierra's honesty was brutal. But your mother believed you could. Samuel's hand tightened around the pendant. His eyes opened. Determination flickered in their depths. The boy was disappearing. Something older was taking his place. I want to learn. His voice carried new strength. About them, about who I really am, the decision was made. The path chosen. Samuel would begin the journey toward understanding his true heritage. But the road ahead stretched into darkness, filled with dangers neither of them could imagine. Miguel's horse shifted restlessly. The old priest's eyes held worry. Time was running short. The town's suspicion was growing. Soon questions would become accusations. There's something else. Miguel's voice cut through the moment. Someone has been watching. A Comanche warrior. He's been seen near the settlement. Sierra's blood turned. Cold. The world that had taken Samuel's mother was reaching across the years to reclaim him. The past was calling its debts due. How long? Weeks, maybe months. Miguel's weathered hands gripped his horse's reins. He knows about the boy, about what you've done. Samuel's eyes widened. The revelation hit him like lightning. His people were out there, watching, waiting, perhaps judging whether the bridge between worlds was worth preserving. What does he want? To see what you've become. Miguel's words carried the weight of prophecy. To decide if you're worth saving. The pendant grew warm in Samuel's palm. His mother's gift pulsed with life, with purpose, with the promise of understanding that lay just beyond reach. I have to meet him. No, Sarah's voice cut through the morning air. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than staying here? Samuel's question held truth they couldn't deny. More dangerous than pretending to be someone I'm not? The boy had become a man in the space of a conversation. His eyes held depths that spoke of decisions made and accepted. The awakening was complete. Then we do this carefully. Sarah's surrender carried the weight of love. We do this together. The path toward truth had opened. Samuel would walk it, guided by the woman who'd raised him and the memory of the mother who died for him. The bridge between worlds was beginning to take shape. But bridges once built could be traveled from both directions. And not all who crossed them came in peace. The warrior appeared at dawn 3 days later. He materialized from the morning mist like a ghost given form. His horse moved without sound across the dew-soaked grass. Samuel had been waiting by the creek, the pendant warm against his chest. Marcus Little Wolf sat motionless on his painted stallion. His weathered face bore the marks of wind and war. Eagle feathers hung from his graying hair. His eyes held the depth of someone who'd seen too much death. You have your mother's eyes. His voice carried the weight of mountains. But your father's hands. Samuel's breath caught. The first words about his birth family in 11 years. The first glimpse into the world that had shaped his blood. You knew them? I am your father's brother. Marcus dismounted with fluid grace. I was there when you were born. When the prophecy was spoken. The pendant pulsed against Samuel's chest. Connection flowed between them like lightning seeking earth. Blood recognizing blood across the years of separation. What prophecy? Marcus approached slowly. His movements held the careful respect of a hunter near sacred ground. His eyes never left Samuel's face. A child born between worlds, a bridge when the old ways die. Marcus's weathered hand touched the pendant through Samuel's shirt. The medicine woman saw it in her visions. Samuel's world tilted. The boy who'd struggled to fit in was more than just an outsider. He was a fulfillment of ancient words. A promise made before his birth. I don't understand. You will. Marcus stepped back. When you're ready to learn. The training began in secret. Marcus taught Samuel to read the land in ways that transcended mere tracking. To feel the pulse of the earth through his feet. To hear the whispers of wind through canyon walls. Your people think the earth is property. Marcus's voice carried no judgment. Only observation. Mine know it as relative, brother, mother. Living thing that breathes. Samuel's hands learned to shape arrows with points sharp enough to pierce bone. His body memorized the rhythm of war dances that told stories older than memory. His spirit began to recognize the songs that called rain from empty skies. But always he returned to Sarah's cabin. To the woman who'd raised him with gentle hands and fierce love. The bridge between worlds was becoming real. Built from morning lessons and evening prayers. You're changing. Sarah's observation carried no accusation. Only recognition. Samuel looked at his reflection in the water basin. The boy was disappearing. Something older was taking his place. His movements had gained the fluid grace of his uncle's teaching. His eyes held depths that spoke of ancient knowledge. I'm becoming who I was meant to be. And who I raised you to be. The question hung between them like smoke from dying embers. Samuel's heart carried the weight of divided loyalties. The love of the woman who'd saved him. The call of blood that remembered its source. Both. His voice carried certainty. I'm both. The deception grew more complex with each passing day. Samuel learned to shift between worlds like changing clothes. Dutiful son at breakfast. Comanche warrior at dawn. The bridge his mother had envisioned was taking shape in the space between truth and necessity. But others were watching. Abigail Harrington's suspicion had sharpened into something dangerous. Her questions came more frequently. Her stares lingered longer. Her hatred for the Comanche had found a target. Something's not right about that boy. Abigail's voice carried across the general store. Mark my words, there's wildness growing in him. The other women nodded. They'd seen Samuel's increasing confidence, watched him move with grace that seemed almost supernatural, witnessed him demonstrate skills that had no explanation in their world. Where does he disappear to? Mrs. Watson's question carried the weight of communal concern. Hours at a time. Never says where he's been. Abigail's eyes narrowed. Her suspicion was crystallizing into certainty. The boy she'd never trusted was becoming the man she'd always feared. I'm going to find out. Her words carried the promise of consequences. Before it's too late. The confrontation came on a Tuesday morning. Samuel emerged from the tree line after training with Marcus. His movements flowed with the liquid grace of a predator. His eyes held the calm assurance of someone who'd found his place in the world. Abigail waited by the creek. Her presence poisoned the morning air with hostility. Her hands gripped a rifle with the familiarity of long practice. I saw you. Her voice cut through the dawn stillness. With him, with that savage. Samuel's training kicked in. His body shifted into a stance that spoke of readiness. His eyes assessed threats and escape routes. The boy who'd once cowered before her anger was gone. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Abigail's rifle rose slightly. I know what you are, what you've always been. The standoff stretched between them. Two worlds colliding in the space of heartbeats. Samuel's hand moved instinctively toward the knife Marcus had given him. But Syrah's voice echoed in his memory. Violence was the last resort, not the first. You don't understand. I understand enough. Abigail's finger found the trigger. I understand that Syrah's been harboring a viper, raising an enemy in our midst. The rifle's muzzle pointed at Samuel's chest. Death waited in the space between intent and action. But something in Abigail's eyes held more than hatred. Something that looked almost like pain. You think I don't know what it's like? Her voice cracked. To lose everything to your kind? Samuel's training told him to move. To strike before she could fire. But his heart heard something else in her words. Something that spoke of wounds that never healed. I'm sorry for your loss. His voice carried genuine sympathy. But I'm not your enemy. You will be. Abigail's aim steadied. When the time comes, when your blood calls you home. The words hit Samuel like physical blows. She'd seen the truth that he'd tried to hide. The growing pull toward the world. That had shaped his bones. The inevitable choice that waited somewhere in his future. Maybe. His honesty was brutal. But not today. Today is all I have. Abigail's voice carried the weight of endless grief. Today is all any of us have. The rifle's hammer cocked. The sound echoed across the creek like thunder. Samuel's muscles tensed for movement. But before either could act, another voice cut through the tension. Put the gun down, Abigail. Syrah emerged from the trees behind them. Her presence changed the dynamic in ways that couldn't be measured. The woman who'd raised Samuel faced the woman who wanted to destroy him. You know what he is. Abigail's rifle remained trained on Samuel. You've always known. I know what he's becoming. Syrah's voice carried the calm certainty of someone who'd found peace with impossible truths. And I know what you're risking. What am I risking? The chance to understand. Syrah stepped closer. The chance to build something better than hatred. Abigail's rifle wavered. Confusion flickered across her weathered features. The certainty that had driven her to this moment was cracking under the weight of possibility. My grandson. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Tommy, he was taken 5 years ago. In a raid. Samuel's blood turned to ice. The revelation hit him like lightning. Abigail's hatred wasn't just ideology, it was personal. It was the rage of a grandmother who'd lost everything. I know. Sierra's words carried unexpected weight. I've always known. Then you understand why I can't let him grow up to be one of them. He already is one of them. Sierra's honesty was brutal, but he's also one of us. That's what makes him special. The rifle's muzzle dropped slightly. Abigail's certainty was dissolving into something more complex. Something that held the possibility of hope alongside the certainty of grief. Tommy might still be alive. Sierra's words carried the weight of possibility. Samuel might be able to help you find him. The offer hung between them like bridge across an impossible chasm. Samuel felt the weight of expectation settling on his shoulders. The bridge between worlds was becoming more than metaphor. It was becoming responsibility. You would do that? Abigail's question carried the fragile hope of someone who'd given up on miracles. Samuel looked at the woman who'd hated him since childhood, saw the pain that had driven her to this moment, understood that her hatred was just grief wearing a different face. I would try. His promise carried the weight of destiny. If you'll let me. The rifle lowered completely. Abigail's shoulders sagged under the weight of years of carrying poison. The hatred that had sustained her was transforming into something else. Something that might eventually resemble hope. What do you need from me? Trust. Samuel's word carried the weight of bridges being built. And time. The alliance was born in that moment. Fragile, uncertain, but real. The woman who'd wanted to destroy him had become the woman who might help him fulfill his destiny. The bridge between worlds was taking shape, built from unlikely materials, held together by the hope that understanding might triumph over hatred, that love might prove stronger than the wounds of the past. But bridges, once built, demanded crossing. And not all who traveled them would find what they sought on the other side. The fragile alliance held for 3 years. Samuel learned to navigate between worlds with increasing skill. His training with Marcus deepened. His understanding of both cultures grew. The bridge between worlds was becoming more than prophecy. But Sheriff Morgan's suspicion had been growing like prairie fire. The man who'd ordered Samuel's death 18 years ago had never forgotten the defiance in Sarah's eyes. He'd been watching, waiting, preparing for the moment when truth would serve his purposes. The moment came on a sweltering August morning. Morgan discovered the unlikely partnership between Sarah and Abigail. His deputy had followed Samuel to one of his training sessions. The pieces fell into place with deadly precision. You've been harboring a Comanche warrior. Morgan's voice carried the weight of authority and betrayal. Training him, preparing him to turn against us. Sarah faced the sheriff across her kitchen table. Samuel sat beside her, 18 years old and carrying the strength of 2 worlds. The boy who'd once needed protection was gone. The man who could protect others had taken his place. I've been raising my son. Sarah's words carried the finality of absolute truth. Nothing more. Your son. Morgan's laugh held no humor. That's rich. You expect me to believe that savage is your blood? Samuel's hand moved instinctively toward the knife at his belt. The gesture was subtle but unmistakable. The sheriff's words had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Careful. Samuel's voice carried the quiet menace of a coiled rattlesnake. How you speak about my mother. The threat hung in the air like smoke from gunpowder. Morgan's hand found his pistol grip. The confrontation was spiraling toward violence with deadly momentum. Stand down, boy. Morgan's voice carried the authority of badge and gun. Or I'll put you down. But Samuel was no longer the frightened child who'd cowered before authority. 3 years of training had transformed him into something dangerous. His eyes held the calm certainty of someone who'd found his purpose. You can try. The standoff stretched between them. 2 men, 2 worlds, 2 incompatible visions of justice. The moment balanced on the edge of a knife blade. There's another way. Sarah's voice cut through the tension. A way that serves everyone. Morgan's eyes narrowed. His grip on the pistol tightened, but he hadn't drawn. Not yet. The possibility of negotiation still existed. What kind of way? Let Samuel help you. Sierra's words carried the weight of desperate hope. Use his knowledge, his connections, end the raids peacefully. The proposal hung between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Morgan's face showed the internal struggle between prejudice and pragmatism. The sheriff who hated Comanche against the lawmen who wanted peace. You're asking me to trust him. I'm asking you to use him. Sierra's honesty was brutal. To let him be the weapon you need. Samuel's jaw tightened. The word weapon cut deep. But he understood the game being played. Sometimes bridges required sacrifice from those who built them. What do you need me to do? Morgan studied Samuel's face. Saw the strength that had grown from the frightened boy. Recognized the potential for violence that training had awakened. The calculation was cold, practical, necessary. Marcus Little Wolf. Morgan's words carried the weight of an ultimatum. I want him, and I want the location of their winter camp. The demand hit Samuel like a physical blow. Morgan was asking him to betray the man who'd taught him everything. To destroy the people who'd accepted him as family. He's my uncle. He's a killer. Morgan's voice carried the finality of judgment. Responsible for dozens of deaths, including women and children. The moral weight of the choice settled on Samuel's shoulders. Betray his blood to protect his home. Sacrifice his teacher to save his mother. The bridge between worlds was becoming a place of impossible decisions. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow. Morgan's ultimatum carried the promise of consequences. After that, I come for both of you. The sheriff left them alone with the weight of decision. Samuel stared at his hands. The same hands that had learned to shape arrows, to track prey, to honor the old ways his uncle had taught him. I can't do it. His voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. I won't betray him. Then we run. Sierra's words carried the desperation of someone facing impossible choices. Tonight, before Morgan comes back. But Samuel's eyes held something else, something that looked like destiny accepting its burden. The boy who'd struggled to choose between worlds was becoming the man who would unite them. There's another way. The plan formed in the space between heartbeats. Samuel would meet with Marcus, would warn him of Morgan's trap, would arrange a meeting that served everyone's needs without betraying anyone's trust. But plans like bridges could collapse under unexpected weight. The meeting took place at dawn in the canyon where Samuel had first learned to shoot. Marcus arrived with 3 young warriors. Their faces were painted for war. Their weapons were ready for battle. You smell of their world. Marcus's observation carried disappointment. Of fear and compromise. I smell of survival. Samuel's voice carried the weight of hard-learned lessons. Of finding ways to live that don't require dying. The conversation that followed was conducted in Comanche. Words that carried the weight of blood and tradition. Samuel explained Morgan's ultimatum. Marcus's response was swift and final. Then we fight. Fighting won't save your people. Samuel's words carried the desperation of someone trying to prevent disaster. It'll only give them excuse to destroy you. Some things are worth destroying for. Marcus's eyes held the fire of absolute conviction. Honor, tradition, the right to exist without bending knee to those who would erase us. The philosophical divide was unbridgeable. Marcus represented the old ways. The belief that death with honor was preferable to life with compromise. Samuel represented something new. The possibility that understanding might triumph over conquest. Then I can't help you. You already have. Marcus's words carried the weight of finality. By warning me, by giving me time to prepare. The sound of approaching hoofbeats echoed across the canyon. Morgan's posse had found them. The trap was closing with deadly precision. Samuel realized the terrible truth. Morgan had followed him, had used his meeting with Marcus to spring his own trap. The bridge between worlds had become a weapon against both sides. You led them here. Marcus's voice carried the weight of absolute betrayal. You chose their world over ours. I chose neither. Samuel's words carried the desperation of someone caught between impossible loyalties. I chose peace. Peace. Marcus spat the word like poison. The peace of the grave. The peace of surrender. The posse appeared at the canyon's mouth. 20 armed men with rifles and righteous certainty. Morgan rode at their head, his face showing the satisfaction of plans coming together. Marcus little. Wolf, Morgan's voice echoed off the canyon walls. You're under arrest for murder and raiding. The response was swift and final. Marcus's warriors raised their weapons. The posse answered in kind. The canyon filled with the sound of hammers being cocked and chambers being loaded. Samuel stood in the space between them. The bridge between worlds had become a target for both sides. His presence had created the confrontation he'd tried to prevent. Stop! His voice carried the desperate authority of someone trying to prevent disaster. This doesn't have to happen, but the momentum was unstoppable. Years of hatred and fear had found their outlet. The canyon that had been a place of learning was about to become a place of ending. The first shot came from the posse, the second from the warriors. Within moments, the canyon filled with smoke and the sound of dying. Samuel threw himself behind a boulder. The battle raged around him. The two worlds he'd tried to bridge were destroying each other in the space he'd created for understanding. When the smoke cleared, 3 warriors lay still. 2 postmen would never see home again. Marcus knelt beside his fallen nephew, a boy barely older than Samuel. The cost of honor had been paid in blood. This is what your peace looks like. Marcus's words carried the weight of absolute condemnation. This is what bridge building brings. Samuel stared at the carnage. The bodies of young men who died for the sins of their fathers. The waste of potential that hatred had created. The failure of every bridge he'd tried to build. I tried to stop it. You caused it. Marcus's voice carried the finality of judgment. By thinking you could serve 2 masters. By believing that understanding was possible. The accusation hit Samuel like a physical blow. He'd tried to save everyone and had succeeded in saving no one. The bridge between worlds had collapsed, taking its builder with it. What happens now? Now you choose. Marcus's words carried the weight of ultimatum, them or us. There is no middle ground. The choice that Samuel had avoided for 18 years was finally upon him. The bridge between worlds was burning. He could save one side or the other, but not both. Never both. The boy who dreamed of unity was becoming the man who would have to choose division. The prophecy that had promised peace was becoming the reality of war. Samuel looked at the woman who'd raised him, at the man who'd taught him, at the world that had shaped him and the world that had claimed him. The bridge was falling, and he was standing in the middle of the collapse. Samuel made his choice in the canyon's echoing silence. The bodies of young warriors lay still in the dust. The bridge between worlds had collapsed into rubble and blood. But from the ruins, something new had to rise. I'm going with you. His words carried the weight of absolute finality. But not as your weapon, as your conscience. Marcus studied his nephew's face, saw the determination that had hardened during the battle, recognized the man who'd emerged from the boy's shattered innocence. The tribe won't accept you easily. Marcus's warning carried the weight of truth. Not after this. Then I'll earn their acceptance. Samuel's voice held the quiet strength of someone who'd found his purpose. The way bridges are built, one stone at a time. The years that followed were marked by small victories and large sorrows. Samuel learned to live fully in his father's world. His skills as a warrior grew. His understanding of Comanche ways deepened. The bridge between worlds began to rebuild itself in the quiet spaces between conflicts. He found love in unexpected places. Maria was Abigail's granddaughter, the child taken in raids years before. She'd grown into a woman who carried two worlds in her heart. Her eyes held the same questions that had haunted Samuel's youth. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked one evening as they watched the sunset paint the plains gold. "The other world?" "Every day." Samuel's honesty was brutal. But missing something and belonging to it are different things. Their courtship was conducted in the language of shared understanding. Two people who'd been shaped by loss and found healing in recognition. Their love grew from the soil of mutual wounds. Luna was born on a night when the stars seemed close. Enough to touch. She arrived with her mother's gentle eyes and her father's strong hands. The bridge between worlds had taken physical form in the shape of a child who belonged to both and neither. But Maria's strength, like morning frost, was beautiful and brief. The birth that brought Luna into the world carried her mother away. Samuel held his daughter while his heart broke into pieces that would never fully heal. "She looks like her grandmother." Marcus's voice carried the weight of recognition. "The one who died in your arms." Samuel saw the truth in Luna's features. The circle was completing itself. The child who'd been saved was now saving another. The bridge between worlds was becoming a family legacy. The grief that followed Maria's death changed Samuel in ways that training never could. The man who'd sought peace began to understand the attraction of war. Destruction was simpler than creation, easier than the daily work of building understanding. "I want to burn it all." His confession came during a night ceremony. "The town, the people, everything that took her from me. Then you understand why we fight." Marcus's words carried no judgment. Why some bridges are worth destroying. But Luna's presence changed the equation. The child who slept in Samuel's arms held the future in her tiny fists. Her mixed heritage was a living reminder that peace was possible. That understanding could triumph over hatred. The war party that approached Sierra's cabin carried 20 years of accumulated rage. Samuel had convinced them that Millbrook represented everything that threatened their way of life. The town that had barely tolerated his existence would burn for its prejudice. But standing in Sierra's doorway, holding Luna's hand, Samuel felt the weight of all his choices. The woman who'd raised him faced the man she'd helped create. The bridge between worlds had become a weapon aimed at both sides. "I should have told you the truth from the beginning." Sierra's words carried the weight of accumulated secrets. About what your mother really wanted. About what the prophecy meant. "Tell me now." Samuel's voice carried the desperate hope of someone seeking redemption. "She didn't want you to choose between worlds." Sierra's revelation hit him like lightning. "She wanted you to heal them, to show that understanding was possible, that love could triumph over hatred." The truth struck Samuel with the force of revelation. He'd spent 20 years trying to choose sides when his purpose was to eliminate the need for sides. The bridge between worlds wasn't meant to carry traffic in one direction. It was meant to unite both shores. Luna is that bridge now. Sierra's words carried the weight of prophecy. The child who belongs to both worlds. The future that we can build together. Samuel looked at his daughter, saw the possibility that her existence represented, the hope that love could overcome the wounds of history, the chance that understanding might triumph over the momentum of hatred. "Call off the attack." Marcus's voice carried the weight of command. "We've found what we came for. What did we come for?" Samuel's question carried the confusion of someone whose worldview was shifting. "Proof that bridges can hold." Marcus's words carried the weight of recognition. That the old prophecy was right, that healing is possible. The war party dispersed into the night. The town that had prepared for destruction woke to find peace instead. The bridge between worlds had held under the weight of its greatest test. Samuel chose to live in this space between certainties. He established a trading post on the boundary between Comanche land and the growing settlement. A place where both worlds could meet without fear, where understanding could grow in the soil of mutual respect. Sira became grandmother to children from both cultures, her cabin filled with the laughter of mixed heritage. The woman who defied authority to save one child became the bridge that connected many. Luna grew up speaking both languages, learning both ways. Her existence proved that identity didn't require choosing sides. That strength could come from embracing complexity rather than fleeing toward simplicity. The trading post became a symbol of what was possible when hatred gave way to understanding, when fear was replaced by curiosity, when the courage to build bridges overcame the temptation to burn them. Abigail found her grandson among the Comanche who came to trade. Tommy had grown into a man who carried both worlds in his heart. The reunion was marked by tears and recognition, by the understanding that love transcended the boundaries that hatred had created. I was wrong. Abigail's admission carried the weight of years. About you, about them, about what was possible. You were hurt. Samuel's forgiveness came easily. Hurt people. But healing people heal people. The settlement that had once barely tolerated Sira's presence began to change. Children played together regardless of heritage. Families shared meals and stories. The bridge between worlds became a community built on the foundation of mutual respect. The pendant that had traveled from dying mother to adoptive mother to grown son found its way to Luna's neck. The turquoise caught the light like captured sky, a reminder that some promises transcended the boundaries of blood and culture. Samuel taught his daughter the lessons he'd learned from both worlds. That strength came from understanding. That courage meant building rather than destroying. That the greatest warriors were those who chose peace when war seemed easier. The prophecy that had begun with a dying mother's wish had found its fulfillment in the laughter of children who belonged to both worlds and neither. The bridge between worlds had become a place of healing, a testament to the power of love to overcome the momentum of hatred. Luna grew up surrounded by the stories of how bridges were built, how understanding could triumph over fear, how the courage to choose love over hatred could change the world one heart at a time. The black widow who'd nursed a dying woman's baby had become the grandmother of a new world. The Comanche warrior who'd called her mother had become the bridge that connected two shores. The child who'd been saved had grown up to save others. And in the space between what was and what could be, hope took root and grew into something beautiful, something lasting, something that proved that the greatest victories were won not with weapons, but with the courage to choose understanding over fear. The bridge between worlds had been built, and it would stand for generations to come. And that is all to the story, for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.